Hello, I'm MPX and sometimes lies can travel faster than the truth, which is why there are so many myths about Minecraft 1.21 that just straight up are not correct, and today I wanted to go through and bust those myths. And so let's start with the first and biggest one, because a lot of people will hate this update solely because of this myth. Did you know trading for mending is too hard now? This is not actually true. The villager trade rebalance thing really sucks, you might say. Having to find a swamp villager really sucks, except wait, here is a plains villager. I know I'm in a cave right now, but you're gonna have to trust me, there's a plains up there. This is a regular plains villager that has spawned in this update, and yet here he is offering me a mending book. This isn't some wizardry or some command block anything. This is just the basic state of the game. The experimental villager trade rebalance was something that Mojang was testing, and it could have been a part of 1.21, but they decided against it in the end, and now if you want to use this, all the good parts of it, such as the new maps or the, for example, such as the Wandering Trader rebalance, if you want to enjoy these things, then you're going to need to turn it on manually. It is officially not going to be part of 1.21 and might come at some point in the future, but realistically it's been cancelled and they just didn't announce it anywhere near as far as they went with the snapshots to bring it in. Speaking of things they brought in, myth. The mace sucks. This is something people will say all the time, and this is because of the snapshot cycle of this update as well. They went on for a very, very long time, and during it, the mace went from being a niche, powerful weapon to losing some of that power, and so some people think that it's near worthless now, but it's honestly so powerful. Let me show you a Smite 5 Netherite sword against the best case scenario for it, a zombie. So this is a zombie with full Netherite armor, but it takes 3 hits to kill when using a Smite 5 sword. How many hits does it take to kill with the mace? You might be amazed to find it's 1. This is an unenchanted mace, keep in mind, but I just killed a zombie with 1 hit, and I could have killed him even faster if I'd gotten the right enchantments, because the mace is so powerful, and it gets even more powerful if you put density on there. Windburst can also add to this, but basically the mace by itself, already the most powerful weapon in Minecraft. It can do more damage than every other weapon in the game, not by a little bit, but by a ridiculous amount, and especially when it comes to high health or high armor enemies, like other players or bosses, this is the weapon to kill them in 1 hit, or as close to it as you can get. Speaking of close to things, myth, the crafter is overpowered. I've heard a lot of people say this because they've seen the crafter used for some really nifty thing, and they think it's going to replace regular crafting, because why wouldn't you just, take your items, like I've got my iron ingots in here, why wouldn't I just take my items and throw them in there and wait for the magic to happen? This is something you might honestly be thinking, and yeah, being able to just auto-craft is powerful, but it's limited. It's mostly, so look at this. We can have a paper farm and a gunpowder farm, and if we just link these two things together, like we'll do right here, yeah, I think I was meant to actually just unactivate this right here, but if I link these two things together, I'll be able to automatically craft fireworks. This seems crazy, but actually it's mostly useful for farms. When you have chest loads of iron, which you need to convert, maybe that's going to be useful then. If you have chest loads of gunpowder and, this, you're going to really want it, but ultimately I think the crafter is not the most powerful item in Minecraft, and I think that it requires enough tinkering that it's fairly balanced, and so the crafter sounds pretty nice, but it really should be called the tinkerer. Speaking of things that should be called the tinkerer, there is a fun thing about copper doors, because you would assume being made of metal that they would work the same as iron doors, and this is true in that both can interact with redstone. Here's my iron door, here's my copper door, perfectly synchronizing. Isn't that beautiful? However, if I was to try and open the iron door with my fist, this would happen, but if I did the same with my fist on the copper door, it would open and close just the same. This means that the copper door is basically a reskin of a wooden door and not a reskin of an iron door, which is a very weird decision if you ask me. There's this little lock on the front you might be thinking about too. This is purely there for aesthetics. It is just a wooden door with metallic sounds, and this is also true for copper trapdoors. You need a redstone signal for iron, but you don't need one for the copper trapdoor, and so I think it's worth shutting down right now for anyone in your life who thinks that it is a metal door, that really it's a metal door, but not in any of the ways that matter. Speaking of the ways that matter, copper doors and copper trapdoors are too expensive to make, is something you might think, because for most of the update cycle, we were begging Mojang, please fix the recipe. You'd think, they made it 6 blocks of copper for 2 copper trapdoors, or 6 blocks of copper for 3 copper regular doors, and they were saying, oh, but what if you want to make a oxidized door? And so they didn't fix it until the very end of the snapshot cycle, where now it will cost you 6 copper ingots for 3 doors, or 6 copper ingots for 2 trapdoors. This means you can get them fairly cheaply because copper isn't the most expensive resource in the world, and I'm a really big fan that they actually did fix this. Give Mojang some credit where credit is due. Not only did they listen to players with the villager trade rebalance, not including that, but also with the copper trapdoor. However, if you're playing Bedrock, you can still craft wax doors the old way. You should never do this. It's 9 times more expensive. You should just put the wax on the other side, but it's worth mentioning that you can do this, and so if you want to craft a fully weathered door, because there is no weathered ingot obviously, you can do precisely that. Speaking of things you can do, myth trial chambers are hard to find. Very reasonable myth to believe, I think. I totally understand it, and with brute force digging, it's probably going to take you some time. Look at this, I'm going to have to be digging around for so long. However, you can just buy a trial chamber map. This is a the villager who previously would give you Woodland Explorer maps will now give you the Trial Explorer map, and this will tell you where your nearest trial chamber is. Or not actually your nearest. As you can see, this one's pointing me all the way over there, but there's actually a trial chamber just through these doors, which, by the way, as another myth, trial chambers only generate in Deep Slate. You might think this is a fact which is majority, it seems like it should be true, and I see why people think that it is, because about 80 to 85% of the time it will be. However, even if you're all the way at Y22, as you can see from me being at these coordinates, even if you're all the way up here, you will still find a trial chamber, and just to prove that we're in the not Deep Slate layers, here in fact is some stone. If I mine over here, I bet I'd find some too, because that's granite actually, but still, you only find that at these layers, and so if you are at Y20 or so, you might think, you might have heard you will never find it, but you will in fact do so. Speaking of things you will in fact be able to do so, let's jump right into these trial chambers. Let's grab some wind chargers, actually. These are a fun item, really great part of this update that no one has any misconceptions about, but something you might have misconceptions about is the trial chamber itself, because myth, you don't need to come back to the trial chambers once you've already done all of the trial chambers, and this is actually not true at all. Obviously, the trial spawner, once it's defeated, it sits dormant for a while, and so you might think to yourself, oh, I've kind of finished the structure, but wait another half an hour and you will be able to do it again, and it's not just that you will be able to, it's that you should, in my opinion. So a lot of people think that the structure is beaten once the spawners are defeated, but it's kind of a structure where you're meant to come back time and time again. Part 1 is because of the vaults. Obviously, the ominous vaults are the ones you really, really want because they contain the most valuable things. They're a reason that you would want to come back. You don't want to miss out on the most powerful weapon and all the other things, but even once you've cleared out every single vault and every single ominous vault, this structure still isn't one to be ignored, because when you take down a trial spawner or an ominous trial spawner, you still have a 70% chance of getting some other loot. You also can only get breeze rods by using these things directly, so this is basically the monster spawner for the breeze, which means if you want breeze rods, as we all probably should for wind chargers, this is the way to farm them, but also it's one of the easiest way to get a bunch of mobs to kill and also get some extra emeralds, and also on top of all of that, there's just a lot of free blocks around here. You don't come to this structure once and then leave it behind. It's going to be one of the most important locations in your world, in my opinion. This is the most replayable structure Minecraft has ever made, and it's a shame a lot of people don't realize that one. Speaking of things people don't realize, myth. The maces are too rare from the ominous vaults. This is something that can feel true if you get really bad luck, and I figured there'd be lots of ways to talk about the actual odds and compare it to that, but I figured what would be much more fun is if I take a room with 500 ominous spawners and I open them all and I show you the actual loot that we get from it. So, first things first, we're going to unload our stuff in the corner here. I've got a lot of, just kind of junk we don't necessarily need. And then we're going to use each of these, I'm going to unload my stuff in the corner here. And then I'm going to use each of these 500 keys to open every single one of the vaults in this room. Let's go. I have opened up just over half of the vaults now, and I just want to, I can't resist this anymore. Let's go running through it. Oh, yeah. And I think I've already filled up my inventory. Yeah, look at that. That is absolute craziness right there. Let's go load it into some chests. The important thing we're trying to work out is how many heavy cores we get, and you can see how, something that feels impossibly rare has suddenly started showing up all over the place here. Bear in mind, though, this would take you about 100 trial chambers to complete an area the size of this room. And now let's get rid of all the stuff that's on top of this. A fun thing you might not know that you can actually do with wind chargers is you can use them to blow items away. So if you really ever want to, you can knock a bunch of items off a table using precisely this. Is there a great need to do that? Probably not, but it's fun. Anyway, let's finish with the trial chambers and see how many cores we get. This feels like playing a classic game where in between the real stages, you get the bonus stage where you just gotta collect as much as you can as quickly as you can. And, gotta admit, idea for Mojang there, right? So after clearing 497 ominous vaults, it was meant to be 500, but I have 3 keys left over, so, you know, apparently I didn't open 3 of them. Which is the equivalent of about 100 trial chambers, I ended up with 40 enchanted golden apples and 37 heavy cores. And there is the pessimistic way to see this, which is to say, wow, you could go to an entire trial chamber and then another one, and statistically, you're still not guaranteed a heavy core, even after, I guess, 100 you're not guaranteed it. But the thing that is interesting about this is it's the first time we've had an enchanted apple style rarity for something which is actually going to be useful to the player in a non-consumable role. Getting an enchanted apple feels so cool in Minecraft, but you immediately say to yourself, but what can I do with this? Whereas the heavy core is about as rare, but has a specific way to get it, which is to say you only have to go to about 3 trial chambers on average, slightly fewer based on my actual numbers, and then you got yourself access to the most powerful weapon in the game. I don't see what's not to love about that. Speaking of things I don't love, I hope that you've enjoyed this map, which was made by KMV, and that you've enjoyed this video, which was made by me, and if you have, then please do consider liking it and let me know. Share it if you really liked it, and make sure that the next time one of your friends brings one of these myths up in casual conversation, that you say to them like, oh, actually, that's not true as it turns out, because I think that misinformation is one of the most important things to fight, and I am someone who really believes in the truth whenever possible, and so it's one of the worst things that you can deal with, but hopefully you can change that. And if you can't change that, go to 100 trial chambers, because then you'll be able to make a wall out of heavy cores. It is something I never knew I wanted until the very end of this video, but you better believe I want it now. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'm going to be beating Minecraft 1.21 using only 1.21 features, so stay tuned for that, because I'll see you very soon. Now, goodbye.